Okay, we start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello, and welcome to participants from around the world. I am Kay Furl, and I will be the moderator of this webinar on innovative approaches to teacher education. I extend a very warm welcome, in some places a very warm welcome, to all participants, and a special word of welcome to the individuals who will be addressing us today. The objective of this webinar is to learn about and discuss innovative ways of training teachers in various parts of the world. You probably know this already, but as attendees of this webinar, you cannot raise your hands to verbally ask questions and make comments, but you are welcome to raise your questions in the chat box throughout the webinar. We will save the questions for the end of the presentations. Please restrict your inputs in the chat box to questions only and exclude comments and emojis. Further, due to the large number of attendees and the necessity to manage the chat box, please write the name of the panelist to whom you are addressing your question prior to writing your particular question. This will enable panelists to easily identify questions directed at them. All questions raised in the chat box will be answered by the panelist in the question and answer session that will take place later. Note, only the panelists can see the questions, so don't be alarmed if you do not see anything but your own questions in the chat box. There is a translate button on the screen as well, where you can navigate should you require the presentation response to be translated. The simultaneous translation has been absolutely wonderful in this conference, and the translation is available in English, Spanish, and French. Any written presentations will be uploaded on the World Blindness Summit website or the ICEVI website for your ease of reference or download. Honorable speakers, I will give you a beep, and it'll be a verbal beep when there are 10 minutes left in your time period, then at 5 minutes remaining, then at 1 minute remaining. I'm afraid that I will have to cut you off at 20 minutes. Before we begin, I want to take this opportunity to introduce the members of the panel of experts to you. We have Gloria Rodriguez-Gill, Director for Latin America and the Caribbean of Perkins International. Thank you, Gloria, for being here. We have Dr. Laura Bozeman, who is Professor and Director of Vision Studies at the School for Global Inclusion and Social Development at the University of Massachusetts at Boston. Thank you, Laura. And Annabelle Isabel Ruiz is Director of Education, Employment, and Braille for ONCE, our very capable host. Thank you, Anna, for joining us. I wanted to start by introducing you to one of ICEVI's major projects this past quadrennium, the Startup Teacher Training Curriculum. Now let's see if I can actually share my screen and go to, are you seeing it?
Not yet.
Not yet. Let me try again. I could do it once and then I don't seem to be able to do it the second time. So let me try again to share my screen. How about now?
Now.
This...
Yes.
It says I'm sharing it. Oh, that's so funny. Maybe you can just bring it up, Jorge. It's icevi.org.
You have shared before.
Yes, I
it's
did.
Work now.
But now you're getting the wrong thing. How about now?
Yes, yes.
You have it. Yay. Okay. So to get to the online teacher training curriculum,
we lost it again. We lost it again. You had it on and then it went off again. It was right.
Tell me if you have it.
Yes.
Yay. This is ICEVI's primary website. It's to get to it, you simply type icevi.org. Luckily, you don't have to share your screen to get to it. But on the front page of icevi.org is a link entitled the Teacher Training Gateway. So I just went to the Teacher Training Gateway, and that will tell you about this project that is really ICEVI's contribution to implementing Sustainable Development Goal 4, the education goal, which states that by 2030, ensure that all girls and boys complete free, equitable, and quality primary and secondary education, leading to relevant and Goal 4 effective learning outcomes. Specifically, we also target SDG. In SDG 4, one of the targets of SDG 4 is that by 2030, we will substantially increase the supply of qualified teachers, including through international cooperation for teacher training in developing countries, especially least developed countries and small island developing states. So what ICEVI has done is put together the Startup Teacher Training Curriculum, which is a link farther down on this page. And the Startup Teacher Training Curriculum is not intended to supplant all of the teacher training that's already out there in developing countries, but it's designed for countries that do not have a teacher training system to support inclusion of children with visual impairments. It is more skills-based than it is, it's more attitude-based than it is skills-based. We specifically wanted to make it easy to understand and easy for people to implement. We have a number of modules available in English and in Spanish, ranging from visual impairment information, growth and development, and then to curriculum access. I'll give you a little bit of an idea of what it looks like. This is the functional implications of blindness and low vision. And I neglected to mention that all of this is downloadable, usable by anyone. It can be viewed on a smartphone. It can be viewed on any cell phone, actually, that has internet connections. And we know that there are so many more cell phones in the world than there is internet connections. But the first objective for functional implications is to outline the implications of blindness and low vision in the development of primary school children. But as I will read a couple of the statements that are in here, and there aren't many, we purposely kept it short, but mostly we wanted people to understand and to implement, to embrace having visually impaired children in their classroom. So item 1 states, most blind children were blind at birth or became blind shortly afterwards. For most, this is not a trauma, but is normal for them. Parents are more likely to feel traumatized. A child blinded after the age of 2 years will have memory of how things look and function and will present with different challenges. Second item, if blind children behave oddly, this is not caused by blindness, but by the inability to observe and imitate their family and peers. They may need to be taught what people without visual impairment take for granted through incidental learning, the type of learning that occurs through visual observation and imitation. So it goes on. Again, it's not very complicated. We also have one on simple vision testing where you have links to other outside sources that will give you information in more detail if you want it. But there is enough here that you can get started with including a child with visual impairment in your classroom right away. It has been a delight to work with people in doing this. We had some wonderful collaborators across the world. A special thanks to Kevin Carey from the United Kingdom, who he and I worked many nights together on this. I also thank Nafisa Babu from Light for the World, Celine Giles, who is from my own region, Suiman Udam Periyasak, I apologize for the pronunciation, from Thailand, Sabine van Draat from the Netherlands, and Mary Zada, also from Perkins School for the Blind. I believe she's Perkins International too, but I'm not sure. I'm sure Gloria will correct me on that. So let me go back and stop sharing for now and go back to introduce you to our the rest of our speakers. Gloria, I understand that the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs selected project, I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, Pixon Mexico from Perkins International as an SDG good practice, recognizing you for your work in improving the quality of education of children with multiple disabilities in Mexico and your sustainable alliances with governments, universities, civil society, and families. If you will correct my pronunciation, I will place the link to the webpage describing the project in the chat room. Actually, I will place it in the chat room because it won't help anybody. Nobody will see it except us. But in the meantime, please tell us, Gloria, about what Perkins International is doing in Brazil, Argentina, and Mexico.
Thank you, Kay, for the introduction. Yes, we're very happy that we were recognized by the United Nations at the SDG 4 and SDG 17. And the work that I'm going to present today is a pre-recorded session, by the way. And it's based, much of the work that I'm going to present today is the base for this recognition of what we're doing in Mexico. So I'm going to share my screen right now. And I think I'm sharing, is that right?
I see it.
You see it, okay. And then I'm going here. Thank you, Kay Farrell and ICBI for the opportunity to share our experiences with a project that we are developing in Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina to bring quality education to children with visual impairments and multiple disabilities, including those with deaf blindness. My presentation will be centered on what we call the model programs, which is intimately related to teacher training. I'll share the process, what we have learned, and some results. But first, I want to briefly talk about our background and our history, which is the basis for our work today with the model programs. One lesson has been recognizing that what we have built before informs us of who we are, where do we come from, what are core principles as we develop new projects. On the slide, you see an aerial shot of Perkins School for the Blind campus. Perkins, in less than a decade, will be 200 years old. This is the center of excellence that we are inspired by. Perkins International, which runs the project, is a division of Perkins School for the Blind. I am showing now a picture taken at the end of the 1800s of two Perkins blind students looking at a tactile map of the United States. In this same period, we start serving students who are deafblind. Famous alumni of the time was Laura Bridgman. Other famous alumni of the 20th century was Anne Sullivan, Helen Keller teacher, and Helen Keller herself. Perkins as a center of excellence nationally and internationally, 100 years ago, we began receiving teachers from all over the world to study at Perkins. Later, this program was called the Educational Leadership Program, or ELP. The map that I'm showing you has the number of ELP graduates from the different parts of the world. 67 Latin America and the Caribbean, 48 Africa, 79 Europe and Eurasia, Middle East and North Africa 12, and 110 Asia and the Pacific. I am one of those teachers who came to Perkins. I'm originally from Costa Rica, and in January of 1992, 29 years ago, I came to Perkins to learn about deafblind education. These graduates study at Perkins for 9 months and come back to their countries and become agents of change. For example, many of the consultants and trainers that we contract in Latin America are ELP graduates. 32 years ago, we received a generous grant from the Hilton Foundation that extended for 25 years. In Latin America, Perkins International, under the leadership of Steve Perrault and Graciela Frioli, was able to work in countries and start building local capacity. At different moments in this period of time, we were able to reach all Spanish-speaking countries plus Brazil. You can see on the slide the map of Latin America and the Caribbean with all Spanish-speaking countries and Brazil highlighted in green. Based on this history, experience, and build capacity, we find ourselves today working in this project with 9 schools from Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina that we're collaborating with to become model programs for their province, state, region, and country. Because these are the largest countries in Latin America, we believe that the experience and results that we obtain can be good examples of what is possible for the rest of the region. This is the team on the ground that is leading the way to bring the schools to become model programs. We have 1 representative in each country where we are working directly with schools. You can see Ana Lucia Rago on the slide. She is the representative from Brazil. Corina Medina, the representative from Argentina. And Martelena Ramirez, the representative from Mexico. Also, the bottom is Alvaro Diaz, who is the monitoring evaluation person, and Mari Vasquez, who is the researcher. We're looking at the impact of the work that we do in the children and the teachers through the research. So here's a map where the model programs are located. It's a map of Latin America. At the top, highlighted in blue, is Mexico. The dots are where the model programs are. In Mexico is in Aguascalientes, Morelos, and Yucatan. In Brazil is highlighted in orange, and the model programs are in Macapá, Tocantins, and Sao Paulo. And in Argentina, highlighted in green, the model programs are in Cordoba, Mendoza, and Santa Fe. We tried to look for programs that were in different states, different provinces, different regions of the country. Some of them are rural, some of them are urban. So we wanted a diversity of schools. 6 of them are special education schools. 3 of them are in inclusive schools. And out of the 9, 8 are public schools, and the 9th is a non-for-profit school, but recognized by the government. Our approach focuses in the improving of the quality of the education of the selected schools so they can become model programs, so they can demonstrate higher standards and what is possible when working with this population. We work very closely with the ministers or secretaries of education in the selection of these schools and in the whole process of supporting them to become model programs. We also have in each of the 3 countries a national stakeholders working group to amplify and advocate for progress. And the model programs are part of this group. The project has a strong monitor, evaluation, and learning component where we're gathering data and we're sharing it with the world. There's, as you know, a data gap in general in this population. And we also are using this information to adjust the project as we go forward. We are also doing research in which we're looking at teacher and child change, as I explained earlier. And we want the ability for this project to replicate in a sustainable way by working together with the secretaries of education and civil society. So we're also working with civil society through the National Stakeholders Working Group. So what is the process of bringing these 9 schools to reach a model program level? The step number 1 is selection of the schools. We choose this from a list of schools provided by the state secretaries or ministers of education. We visit the schools and we observe if they're enthusiastic to partner with us, to want to learn, if they have the right attitude, if there's the capacity to increase their knowledge and skill up. So we have a protocol that we follow to choose the schools, and then we sign a letter of agreement or collaboration with the Secretary or Minister of Education. The second step is to evaluate the programs. Perkins has an evaluation tool called the Program Quality Indicators. What you see on the slide is the baseline results of one of the model programs that we're working with. And you can see at the top, the indicators are divided in 3 stages: developing model programs, emerging model program, and model program. Then at the bottom, there's the areas that we evaluate: assessment, program planning and classroom organization, environment, communication and social relationships, curriculum, family support, administration and support, and governmental collaboration. We train the programs on the use of this tool so it becomes a self-assessment tool as well. Based on the results of the evaluation, we develop a plan with the programs. A plan that will describe the actions that Perkins and the schools will do during the year to elevate the model program status. After 2 years of applying this tool consistently in all schools, we're in the process of revision, and soon we will pilot and publish the changes that we're making. Right now, the adjustments of the tool are, for example, to become more sensible to the changes of the schools and have a stronger focus on inclusion and innovation. In the fall, we'll be piloting this new version of the tool. The third step is capacity to support children's learning. On the slide, you see several examples on how we train and mentor adults of the model programs, which includes not only the classroom teachers, but also the caregivers, other specialists, administrators, officers from the Secretarial Ministry of Education. At the top to the left, there's a picture of a flyer of Perkins International Academy that we deliver currently with 2 universities, UNAM in Mexico and UCC in Argentina. We delivered it online and in 2 languages, in Spanish and Portuguese. Perkins International Academy are 3 courses, 120 hours each course, with the fundamentals of working with this population and developing programs. In the center, you see a circle of mothers with PI team and members of the Secretary of Education. We're training mothers with mother leaders, our team, and the teachers of their children from the model programs. We also did in-person and now online individualized trainings to each model program based on the individual needs of the schools. During this pandemic, we have been able to do also trainings with all 3 schools per country together, and gathering the 9 schools from the 3 countries, they were able to share their programs and also their best practices. The model programs from all 3 countries expressed that their network meeting was tremendously interesting and inspiring because they were learning about other realities. Finally, some of the teachers from the model programs will participate in the educational leadership program at Perkins. For example, in the new cohort, we have 2 excellent teachers participating from these programs. We're observing that one of the strengths of the strategy are the teams that we are training, coaching, collaborating with in each of the schools. As you can see in the slide, we have the teachers who are the ones working directly with the students and the families, the principals who manage the schools and need to lead the way and to have the knowledge to support the direct work of the teachers, the supervisors who bring the external context and the perspective of the Secretary of Education, Also, they supervise other schools, and they bring to the other schools the knowledge and experience they're learning, they're gaining in this project. And then we have the families, which brings us the reality, the context, the unique knowledge that they have about their child and what is important to them. In this last part of my presentation, I will share three examples of where we are beginning to see transformation. We have learned that transformation happens slowly and gradually. There are so many factors that affect change, and it's hard to capture the different levels of change. Nevertheless, we want to say that it happens if there is enthusiasm for change, desire for new knowledge and experience, and respect for the diversity of the different actors in the education of the student. This is a picture of the first slide of Fabrizio's Personal Centered Planning, or PCP, in a Zoom meeting in 2020. You can see the picture of Fabrizio, and in very small screens, the participants of the meeting. It was the first experience of this type of planning for the family and the school. And for us, it was the first experience of doing a PCP online. His PCP was developed in several sessions. It happened during the pandemic, but one of the advantages was that Fabrizio's family lived next to each other, so they all participated. The family made it a celebration of Fabrizio's life. Among the many benefits of this type of planning, this activity brought the school and family closer together. So now in 2021, the family and the school have a communication book where they take pictures of Fabrizio doing different activities with notes explaining what he's doing in the pictures at home and at school. The mother expressed to Karina Medina, a representative in Argentina, that now they know better what he's doing at school, and both sides can talk with Fabrizio about his experiences using this notebook. As we all know, during the pandemic, education has been happening at home. And so one of the elements of our trainings is the developing of calendars for the students. And so the schools have been training mothers or the caregivers to develop calendars at home. This is an example. This is a picture of a calendar system that Beatriz, Paris' mother, developed for Paris. You can see in the picture the calendar with a spoon attached. They're about to have a meal together. And Beatriz, the mother, is looking at Paris. We see Paris from the back. He's in his wheelchair, and he seems to be looking towards the calendar. On the next slide, we will hear Beatriz talking about Paris' calendar and the use of his hands. The video is a little bit over 3 minutes long. She speaks in Spanish, but the video is subtitled in English.
Bueno, creo que en esta foto también se muestra como un antes y un después, porque el calendario de anticipación, antes usábamos cajas. Una caja era la de inicio y la otra de término. Pero ya fue cuando se dieron cuenta después, pues creo que con el material que mandaban y eso las maestras, les hicieron creo que la sugerencia pues de que se buscara otra forma, no sé, otro calendario, algo o algún otro material, porque sí, yo también como que no había hecho mucha conciencia de eso, que para Paris era complicado eso de meterle la mano hasta la caja y luego usar la otra, entonces yo trataba como de que Paris se adaptara a ese calendario, ¿no? Y no veía tanto que no le estaba funcionando muy bien. Entonces, esa foto creo que refleja un poquito también de lo que trabajábamos antes y a lo que trabajamos ahorita. Pero dentro de lo que cabía, aunque no, era un poco complicado para Paris que él tomara la pelota, yo lo que veía era que sí se prestaba, digamos, a mí me ha funcionado mucho el trabajo de mano bajo mano, cuando Paris tiene la disposición, cuando está contento y eso, él coopera, él es espástico, entonces sus bracitos son los que tiene más afectados, pero aún así, cuando a él le gusta una actividad, se nota porque él se relaja, él permite que yo le lleve su manita, Entonces estábamos hablando sobre la pelota y eso, y yo le estaba diciendo que ya la íbamos a tomar y eso, lo estaba acercando, y más antes ya la había sentido, ahí creo que ya la íbamos a sacar, entonces ya la íbamos a sacar y él me estaba permitiendo muy bien, o sea, llevarle su manita y tomar la pelota, dirigirlo, entonces ya, y él sabía que íbamos a tomar la pelota, entonces estaba contento, estaba sonriendo.
¿Lo ves?
Ese es actualmente su calendario. Cuando me dijeron las maestras que íbamos a cambiar los calendarios y pues que iban a empezar con el de París. Tuvimos una reunión igual, estaba todo el equipo, los maestros que conocen a París, y pues hicieron una lluvia de ideas, ¿no? Empezaron a hacerme sugerencias como qué podíamos utilizar, pues algo que fuera más funcional para París, que no fuese tan complicado de estar metiendo y sacando. Entonces, pues llegamos a la idea de que fuera algo así como una carpeta. Y pues yo me acordé que yo tenía una por ahí guardada y pues no le estaba dando ningún uso. Entonces la saqué y pues en ese momento les dije, no sé, esta me podría servir. Y pues se las enseñé y me dije, sí, pues básicamente cumple la idea, o sea, solamente la volteé. Pues de hecho todo el material yo lo tenía en casa, o sea, la pintura la tenía en casa, la base, sujetó la carpeta, o sea, el velcro, todo lo teníamos en la casa, no gasté nada para nuestro calendario. Los objetos clave son cosas que también ya teníamos. En esa foto que utilizamos para anticipar el trabajo en mesa, que los niños reconocen muy bien porque la usábamos desde mucho más antes, en el salón de clases, en esas tapitas poníamos pintura, cada que ellos trabajaban en mesa.
This is the third and last example. This is João Pedro. In the middle of the screen, you see João Pedro, his picture. He attends a regular high school. In Brazil, students with disabilities attend regular schools. And when we visited his high school, his participation was mostly social. There was very little academics happening. As I explained earlier in my presentation, a group of teachers from each model program participated in Perkins International Academy. As part of this course, the teachers need to build a portfolio for their student. And this is a diagram that developed a resource teacher, who is the teacher who supports students with disabilities in that high school. And she chose music. Music is João Pedro's favorite activity. And what she tried to do here was, what she was learning in Perkins International Academy is to correspond the skills and knowledge of João Pedro that he can learn in music class with the different areas of the curriculum. I'll read from the screen 2 areas that are mentioned. One is communication literacy. She wrote underneath it, listen to music, read and write the lyrics with a communication partner, understand the meaning of keywords in the song. And then another area is gross and fine motor skills, move and dance with music and play carom. Carom is a percussion instrument. So this is all for now. Here's my name, Gloria Rodriguez Gil. My email is gloria.rodriguez@perkins.org. And my cell phone is 617-223-7787 in case any one of you want to contact me. Thank you for your attention. Bye.
Not exactly goodbye, Gloria.
I'm here.
Thank you so much. That was really interesting. And this work in Brazil is what received the United Nations recognition?
No, the work in Mexico. Pishan is a Mayan word that means soul. And what we like about the soul is because every person in the world, no matter if the person has disabilities or not disabilities, have a soul. So it's the work we do in Mexico, Project Pishan.
Well, congratulations. That's very exciting. I was able to put the link into the chat so that others could see it.
Thank you.
So next, Laura.
Yes.
I have to say that I followed your travels to Palau and the other South Pacific islands with a bit of jealousy combined with a bit of wanderlust. But I know your days and nights were not always sunny and on the beach. I know you also work hard. Please tell us about your work.
Of course. Let me share my screen. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It takes me a minute. All right. Yes, we were so thankful. All partnerships are a little different, and this one, let me move the people, called Changing Lives, a regional approach to change outcomes for children with visual impairment in the Pacific region. This slide has, this slide has palm trees in the foreground and the ocean in the background, and there's a small island and a lovely rainbow. So as Kay, as you mentioned, it's a tough job, but we were so fortunate to be able to be a part of it. A few of the things I want to cover here is the need for this partnership, and about a young girl in the Federated States of Micronesia, Avilia, and her grandmother, who were the driving force for this part of the collaboration. I want to talk a little bit about the foundation and how that was laid and the emergence of the collaboration, certainly the partners, because, you know, it takes a village. There were so many of us who were a part of this. University of Massachusetts at Boston, the Vision Studies program, we were the academic piece, and the very important scholars who traveled from their various islands to Guam many, many times, and who hosted us when we went to their entities. And then how we determined how we were doing and how we are doing with this partnership. This slide is really just a map of the Western Pacific with the islands highlighted where we were able to recruit scholars, Palau, Guam, the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, the Republic of the Marshall Islands, the Federated States of Micronesia, and American Samoa. In all of these areas, there was only one teacher who had knowledge about teaching children with vision impairment. In 2010, I will say that this beginning of this collaboration started in 2011 with us. So in 2010, 136 students with visual impairment were identified and reported via the IDEA count. And again, as I mentioned, only one credentialed teacher, or really a teacher who understood about teaching vision impairment and strategies and technologies in that line. As with any count, in the 48 years of my career, children are under-identified for a myriad of reasons. Once we started going into these islands, we found hundreds more children, hundreds. So there was certainly a need. Another kind of issue about the need is that there's certain visual disorders that there's just many more cases in these islands than what we see in the United States. So an example is microphthalmia and anophthalmia. Typically, we see 4 to 30 cases per 100,000 births in the US mainland of these disorders. And an example, Chuuk, a small island in the Federated States of Micronesia, we're seeing 140 cases per 100,000 births. There was some research in 2010 that was published trying to determine what might be causing just so many cases. They were exploring whether it was a vitamin A deficiency, was it something, what was going on with the genetics, and to my knowledge, there's still research ongoing about why this is happening. Another example is occurs in Pinglap in the state of Pohnpei. This is in the Federated States of Micronesia as well. There are many, many children with achromatopsia, which is typically a rare genetic disorder in the mainland US. So this slide has got two pictures. They're all rolls of paper. The picture on the left is in shades of gray and brown, and the picture on the right are the actual colors of these rolls of paper: red, blue, yellow, green, and purple. So we just found many children with these two types of disorders there. This slide has an adorable picture of a little girl named Avilia and her grandmother, Justina. Avilia in this picture is 2. She has short, dark, curly hair. She also has achromatopsia. And her grandmother, we titled this slide, Avilia's Hope, a Simple Request. When this child was diagnosed, everyone said she needed to go away. She needed to go away to be taught, to have resources, to really have a life. And her grandmother really felt like those options should be brought to the island. Why should this young child have to leave her family, her home, her community, her tribe, just to have a chance at a better quality of life? And so that was a driving force in this project. Also, a huge part of the foundation is Donna McNair, who is in this picture here. She's to the right of the picture. She is seated. She's in island clothes. Many of us know Donna very well, just known her for decades. And she was doing work in the Pacific Islands for 10 years prior to us being involved in 2011. So she was a huge part of establishing this corporation and this collaboration. And with her here are 2 male medical students who she recruited to come down there and start doing some research and looking for reasons for so many cases of some of these typically rare visual disorder. And sitting on the lap of one of these medical student guys is a really cute kid with visual impairment, actually has anophthalmia. And then there's a family member, a male, who is looking on as well in this picture. And this picture was taken in the Federated States of Micronesia. So this particular slide has got the logo for OSEP that says Ideas at Work. The University of Guam Cedars, and that's a USED, a Center for Excellence in Disabilities, Education, Research, and Service. Most universities in the United States have USEDs that they're just sections of the university that really concentrate on disabilities. And so the University of Guam Cedars wrote a grant proposal to OSEP to establish this collaboration and involve the UMass Boston Vision Studies program as part of it. They established the Pacific Visual Impairment Program, the Pacific VIP, with the main goals to prepare 20 scholars to get their master's degree in vision studies with specialization in teacher of students with vision impairment and orientation mobility. We have the banner for University of Guam Cedars at the top of this slide, and I'm introducing the partners. On here, there is a picture of the United States, and we also have some of the islands, including Guam, because the 3 areas of USEDs that were involved in this project are highlighted in yellow. That's the University of Guam Cedars, the Institute for Community Inclusion at UMass Boston, which of course includes our Vision Studies program, and the Institute on Community Integration with the University of Minnesota. So it was a 3-pronged collaboration there. University of Guam Cedars, the director at that time was Heidi San Nicolas, and I have a picture of her. She's smiling and has long blonde hair, and the associate director, June De Leon, also smiling, and shoulder length dark hair. they really pulled all of this together and had worked with Donna McNair for a long time. Asuncion Guerrero was the project director for the Pacific VIP, lives in Guam. Her picture here, she has short dark hair, glasses, and is smiling. And another picture of Donna McNair as the independent educational consultant. She has dark and light hair in this picture and glasses and is smiling. Our Institute for Community Inclusion at UMass Boston, the director at that time was Bob McCulley, and I have a picture of him. He has a beard and a straw hat. He wore that hat the whole time we were down on the islands. And then there's a picture of me with shorter light hair and a flower in my hair. It was a wonderful time. And then the Institute on Integration with University of Minnesota, Michael Sharp. He served as the external evaluator because we evaluated every part of this partnership. And this picture, he has glasses, he's outdoors and is wearing a blue shirt.
Beep.
I'm sorry?
10 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to be fast. Okay, so how we got into this, we being UMass Boston, I have to give a nod to UK for helping establish our whole program that was the foundation that allowed us to do this geographical outreach. I've known Kay for a long time, but Kay was helping UMass Boston long before I ever arrived there. I've been there 15 years, and she was helping try to, well, you were probably doing many things, but the thing that sticks in my mind so much was how do we do distance education and make it valid in breadth and depth? And that was important for this project. Our mission also there is based on the National Plan for Training Personnel to Serve Children with, it's got a really long title, the MPTP, that was published, some research that was published in 2000. And part of that, the results were that there was a need for thousands of TVIs and thousands more at that time of O&M specialists. And that there was a need for geographical outreach because we can't have a university program for VI in every single state in the US because there wouldn't be enough students in it to keep it going. And so using distance education, diversified resources, and diversity, making sure we had diversity in our faculty and the students we were preparing. We established the Northeast Resource Center for Vision Education and began meeting the needs of the 6 New England states. And that prepared us to do the geographical outreach for the Western Pacific. We started by recruiting anybody interested from those islands and put them in education of students with visual impairment. It was an introduction to vision impairment and also an introduction to the online format because some people it's not the best fit. So we wanted to give them a chance to see what it was like. We had some challenges, but they were all good. These scholars, English is their second language. Our content is in English. And so we didn't want that to be a barrier. And we used Connie, Asuncion Guerrero, as sort of a culture broker in our courses. We put her in every course. And she helped us as faculty to be clear, to use clear constructs and concepts, clear English, to be honest. And then she also networked with the scholars. Some spoke better English than others and understood English better than others. And she really was a liaison to the scholars as well. Our synchronous office hours did start out to be quite the challenge. All of these scholars work, and we didn't want them having to join a synchronous session. We wanted everybody together, and we didn't want them in the middle of the night. So Guam, Chuk, and CNMI were Saturdays from 1 to 2. Ponape, Colchray were Saturdays from 2 to 3 p.m. American Samoa was Fridays from 4 to 5 p.m. Hawaii, because we had 2 scholars who had family issues in Hawaii, so they were spending time there. Fridays from 5 to 6 p.m. And then Boston, we were 11 to midnight or midnight to 1 a.m., depending on where we were in the time change of the season. We integrated face-to-face content, 2 10-day trips per year to Guam. And then they brought all the scholars from the islands into Guam. And we found that that was critical. And so we increased the trips. We spent our travel budget from that grant almost immediately. We had to find different ways to fund it. Our first trip was an orientation. We've got a picture of Bob and myself, and we're just demonstrating human guide, and then we let the scholars teach each other and practice human guide. And we have a picture there of 4 ladies doing that. Then we started going to the communities. We went to the various islands. These 2 pictures are from American Samoa. We were with the associate director of the University of Guam and the director of education of American Samoa, the special ed director from American Samoa. And then the lady on the right in purple is the one trained TVI, and she lives in Samoa. Her name is Olebe. And then there's a picture of Bob and myself. And then on the right, that TVI teacher and Bob and myself in island clothing. Got some pictures of the schools, the children changing classes. This happened to be a middle school, American Samoa. We have a child here, middle schooler, using the Mountbatten Brailler.
4 minutes.
Classes. I'm sorry. Okay, I think you're saying I've got 5. So yeah, and then a choir, a music class, and one of these ladies in the girls in this choir wants to be a TVI. She is totally blind. We ended up with 20 scholars beginning the next courses. We lost 4 who just said this isn't for them. And they took Braille 1 and 2, orientation mobility, activities of daily living, and our anatomy course, visual functioning. We planned the 2nd and 3rd trips for face-to-face content, to 2 faculty for Braille, 4 faculty for O&M, because we had 20 scholars and we needed to split them up to meet all the credentialing requirements. This is a picture of the whole group, all 20 scholars with the 6 faculty in the front, and then Connie Guerrero, the project director, in the middle of the front at the University of Guam. You can tell we are happy. We are hot, but happy. And then these are just the different groups from the different islands. We had 5 ladies from American Samoa, 5 ladies, 2 men from Federated States and Micronesia, 2 from Saipan, ladies, and 6 ladies started from Guam, but we lost 1, but the other 5 did. Everybody else completed. Just different pictures of our faculty, of the scholars teaching each other, and of the scholars in Braille course. We did evaluate, everything was evaluated, each course, each part of the course, the in-person parts, the everything, and scholars could rate across 17 characteristics about the instruction: quality, relevance, and usefulness, high, medium, and low score options. And I don't have time, obviously, to give you all of the different courses and everything, but the summary is that 95% said the training experience was of high quality, 100% said the training experience was highly relevant and useful. So we're just thrilled about that. We learned a lot. It changed our lives, actually. We improved our teaching. We were challenged to be more creative and clear. And the scholars, we still have a footprint there, and the scholars, they have many years under their belt now, and we use them as, networking opportunities right there for new people who want to come in. And then this last slide is also in Guam, palm trees in the beginning, front part, and then an island in the ocean, and it's at sunset. And it was just beautiful. And all the islands we visited were just gorgeous. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. It's really wonderful to learn more about the program. I didn't know that you knew that I had a tenuous connection to the program as well.
A hugely important connection.
Well, thank you. Let's go on to Ana Isabel Ruiz. Ana is from ONCE, and while we just met last week, we're really anxious to hear about what you were doing in Spain in terms of training teachers. Please go on. And Ana will be speaking in Spanish, so use your translation button if needed.
Thank you. Muchas gracias, Kay. Encantada de poder compartir este ratito con vosotros y de haber escuchado las experiencias que han presentado mis compañeras del webinar. Yo, como bien dice Kay, voy a presentaros un poco, contaros cuál es la experiencia en la formación de los docentes en España, ¿no? Cómo trabajamos para mejorar esa formación, dado que es el pilar fundamental para que la inclusión se consiga. Voy a iniciar un poco contándoos cómo es nuestro modelo educativo y cómo funcionamos, ¿no? Y iré imbricando un poco todo lo relacionado con la formación del profesorado y también haciendo un planteamiento último de a dónde creemos que debemos llegar. En España, la ley educativa, la última ley que se ha aprobado en diciembre del año pasado, la LOE y la LOU, la última ley también universitaria, recoge dentro de sus preceptos la inclusión como algo a tener en cuenta y a cumplir, ¿no? por la comunidad educativa. En España aparece por primera vez en la legislación educativa el concepto de la inclusión en el año 2006. Os cuento esto porque ayer, curiosamente, que yo también estuvimos en un panel que hablábamos de educación inclusiva, ¿no? Y una de las interrogantes que se ponía es cómo se cumple, ¿no? Cómo hacemos que se cumplan esto que se escribe y que es tan bonito, ¿no? La verdad es que es difícil, ¿no? Mover los sistemas educativos, el funcionamiento anclado en el tiempo, ¿no? Es complicado. Hoy por hoy, en España, los niños con ceguera o con deficiencia visual grave se escolarizan en centros ordinarios en un 99%. La verdad es que tenemos una experiencia larga y tendida desde los años 80 del pasado siglo de esta escolarización y ha sido posible pues por la constitución de los equipos específicos de atención a las necesidades educativas derivadas de la discapacidad visual, que se constituyen en base de la relación que tiene la ONCE como entidad con las administraciones educativas, ¿no? Con los responsables de la educación, porque la educación es un derecho y los niños ciegos son ciudadanos de pleno derecho y tienen derecho a ella. Estos equipos lo forman profesionales, principalmente maestros que pertenecen tanto a la ONCE como a las diferentes administraciones educativas, y también forman parte de ellos otros profesionales, ¿no? Especialistas, técnicos de rehabilitación, instructores de tiflotecnología y braille, otros especialistas que son necesarios para trabajar, ¿no? Las necesidades de este alumnado. En ONCE el modelo de prestación de servicios que tenemos es un modelo individual y basado siempre en un plan de intervención. Es decir, que cuando se detecta un niño con discapacidad visual que está escolarizado en un centro educativo, en cualquier etapa educativa, incluso cuando no están escolarizados, ¿no? A través de nuestros programas de atención temprana, lo primero que hacemos es hacer una valoración lógicamente psicopedagógica, detectar sus necesidades y a partir de ahí definir un plan, ¿no? Este plan se comparte con el centro educativo, con el maestro, con el docente que atiende a este niño, y a partir de ahí se planifica la intervención de forma que pueda acceder de manera normalizada al currículum ordinario de la escuela, ¿no? Pero sí que lo cierto, ¿no? Lo real es que la escuela, hoy por hoy, sigue siendo ese receptáculo donde se juntan un grupo de niños que comparten edad, y en el que se les va a enseñar con determinados métodos pedagógicos una serie de materias curriculares con las mismas pautas, o sea, no teniendo en cuenta la diferencia que puede haber entre ellos, no solo con los niños que tienen discapacidad, ¿no? Sino en general de todos los niños. Esto a veces dificulta, lógicamente, que los niños con ceguera puedan acceder a todo con cierta normalidad, ¿no? Incluso el tema de la tecnología, todo el tema de la accesibilidad, el uso de recursos, pero no tanto ya eso, sino la manera de aprender, ¿no? Todo el mundo que trabajamos en la ceguera y la discapacidad visual sabemos que un niño ciego aprende de forma diferente a un niño visual, ¿no? A un niño que ve, lógicamente los estímulos le llegan de otra manera y su cerebro, bueno, pues funciona, sus áreas cerebrales funcionan de manera diferente. Y eso sí que sería importante, ¿no? Ese conocimiento sí sería importante que lo tuviesen los docentes. Nuestros equipos, los profesionales de nuestros equipos, que son expertos, que la ONCE forma continuamente. Curiosamente, en este momento están todos los cursos de formación en marcha porque ha finalizado el curso escolar en España la semana pasada y nuestros maestros de los equipos se forman en materias específicas relacionadas con la discapacidad visual. Reforzamos sus conocimientos porque ellos son los transmisores, ¿no? Tenemos como 3 pilares fundamentales en la atención de las necesidades de los niños. El primero es el niño, ¿no? Fundamental, al que normalmente iniciamos el conocimiento del braille, iniciamos la tecnología, iniciamos todo el tema de autonomía, o sea, todas las áreas, ¿no?, de intervención que están relacionadas con la discapacidad visual. Reforzamos las áreas curriculares de especial dificultad por el tema principalmente de la signografía, como pueden ser las matemáticas, las ciencias, la plástica, la educación física, la música, ¿no? Y intentamos, ¿no?, ese conocimiento trasladarlo a ese tutor o a ese docente de aula, dado que al final es el que comparte escuela, ¿no?, durante todo el periodo lectivo, y para que realmente él pueda continuar, ¿no?, con la intervención. Nuestro segundo pilar fundamental es la familia. No se educa a ningún niño si no se cuenta con la familia, son fundamentales. Gloria ponía un ejemplo, cuánto nos han hecho avanzar las familias, cuánto nos han ayudado y cuánto las necesitamos, ¿no? Y el tercer pilar fundamental, lógicamente, es toda la comunidad educativa, no centrándonos exclusivamente en el tutor de aula o docente, sino centrándonos en todo el centro educativo y todo lo que conlleva el centro educativo. Para avanzar en la inclusión hay que formar a todos, desde los directores de los centros educativos, los secretarios, a todo el claustro de profesores, intervengan o no intervengan con esos niños en ese momento determinado, ¿no? ¿Cuál es nuestro papel? Nuestro papel fundamental, además de ser esos canalizadores del conocimiento de la discapacidad hacia los centros educativos, además de formar a ese tutor de aula o a ese profesor en secundaria o incluso en la universidad, ¿no?, en cuanto a qué es la discapacidad visual, cómo aprende un niño, qué metodologías pedagógicas debe de seguir, qué necesidades tiene un niño, cómo se pueden adaptar los materiales, ¿no?, porque es muy triste que un niño, por ser ciego, ya sabemos que va a usar diferentes materiales, su papel va a ser diferente, él va a tocar unos puntos en vez de ver unas letras, va a usar una máquina Perkins, pero puede usar un ordenador, puede usar una tableta, va a necesitar una línea braille, bueno, va a necesitar un revisor de pantalla. Sabemos que ya va a tener que hacer cosas diferentes, ¿no? Pero es triste a veces, ¿no?, que un niño no pueda participar en una actividad de un aula porque su maestro, su tutor, no sepa adaptar una actividad o no piense, ¿no?, olvidémonos el concepto de adaptar, o no piense desde el primer momento cómo generar una actividad que sean capaz de llevar a cabo todos mis niños, ¿no?, todos mis alumnos. Y ese es algo que también tenemos que cambiar, ¿no? Yo siempre digo que hay unos, diríamos, como 3 partes importantes a la hora de poder avanzar en la inclusión. Una es cambio de mentalidad, de la barrera ¿no?, de mental, ¿no?, lo que a veces nos impide. Por supuesto, la formación del profesorado, ¿no?, y luego la difusión, la sensibilización, la visibilidad, ¿no?, el que nos vean. Además de hacer estas labores, que siempre organizamos formación para el centro educativo, para todo el profesional que quiera, además organizamos actividades de sensibilización para enseñar en la escuela que un niño ciego puede jugar, que un niño ciego puede hacer un deporte y que todos los niños pueden participar en ese juego con un niño ciego y que pueden practicar deporte con ellos, que no hay ningún impedimento. Y luego también a través de las propias administraciones educativas, ¿no? De las diferentes comunidades, como está estructurada España, también ofrecemos cursos de formación a través de sus centros de formación del profesorado. Pues dependiendo un poco las necesidades que se tengan, pueden ser desde lo más básico, cursos de braille, cursos de autonomía, de tecnología, todo el tema de atención temprana, o sea, no, de cualquier aspecto, ¿no? Un poco que nos demanden. Este funcionamiento, ¿no? Un poco en el que nosotros como entidad y como expertos y gran conocedores de la discapacidad visual y de la ceguera ejercemos esta labor, ¿no? hacia la comunidad educativa, es, diríamos, concordante con la situación en la que está España, la escuela, ¿no? La escuela de España, la escuela todavía está en esa fase de integración muy avanzada para nuestra discapacidad y dando el paso hacia la inclusión. Por suerte tenemos centros educativos que ya están avanzando hacia la
10
inclusión.
minutes, Anna.
Thank you. Que ya entienden que debe ser el centro educativo el que tiene que poner, o sea, el centro, ¿no? No es el niño el que se tiene que adaptar al centro educativo, sino el centro educativo a las necesidades de los niños. Pero bueno, todavía son experiencias. Nuestra nueva ley educativa nos da un desarrollo de 10 años, muy parecido a los ODS del 2030, para conseguir todo esto. Sí que os quiero, para mí, ya os digo que la clave principal es que los docentes que atienden durante toda la vida académica a los estudiantes estén preparados para hacerlo, para que les atiendan de forma inclusiva, de modo que deben conocer la discapacidad y que integren en su trabajo la atención de esas necesidades específicas que tienen el alumnado con discapacidad visual. Daros unos datos, ¿no? Contaros que en el sistema universitario español actualmente hay 82 universidades, privadas, públicas, concertadas, y que en casi todas estas universidades hay facultades de magisterio, de ciencias de la educación y de pedagogía. En la formación de grado de magisterio, ¿no? De maestro, todavía existe en España la mención de educación especial, o sea, todavía se diferencia. Se hace un corralito específico para los conocimientos relacionados con la discapacidad en general, ¿no? No se ha conseguido que se integre dentro de las otras menciones de educación infantil, de primaria, de música, de educación física, de idiomas. O sea, deciros que la discapacidad en general, en la formación de primer nivel, en grado, es algo totalmente anecdótico y que pasa de puntillas por las materias curriculares, ¿no? que se imparten en estas titulaciones. Si avanzamos y damos un paso ya hacia segundo ciclo, tercer ciclo, o sea, másteres y doctorados, pues efectivamente ahí ya vemos que cada vez más hay titulaciones que están relacionadas con la discapacidad en general. Hay títulos de experto, hay cátedras específicas de discapacidad. Contaros también que también se han dado algunos pasos, ¿no? En el año 2006 se publicó el libro blanco del diseño para todos en las universidades. También la conferencia de rectores de universidades de España, la CRUE, hizo los diseños curriculares de algunas titulaciones para incluir dentro de ellas lo que es el diseño universal y la accesibilidad universal para todos, ¿no? En titulaciones pues desde derecho a medicina, psicología y trabajo social, más bien pensando en que estos profesionales a la hora de desarrollar su trabajo ya tuviesen un poco incluido, ¿no? El concepto de la discapacidad a la hora de pues, poder atender o diseñar un edificio o saber que tienes que defender a una persona ciega, ¿no? Esto pues poquito a poco va avanzando. He sacado por ahí unas referencias para que veáis un poco en las titulaciones de primer ciclo, por ejemplo, dentro de las materias curriculares, las referencias relacionadas con la discapacidad que más aparecen son los trastornos del aprendizaje, la enfermedad mental, las deficiencias del lenguaje, habla y voz. También aparecen referencias a cualquier colectivo. En las titulaciones de segundo y de tercer ciclo, parecido, ¿no? Ya cada vez aparece más el concepto de la accesibilidad, ¿no? Ya os digo que hay un montón de cursos de máster, pero lógicamente un maestro para trabajar en la escuela, ¿no? Como maestro, sobre todo en educación infantil y primaria, un máster es una formación que hace porque quiere, no es obligatoria, ¿no? Además, un máster cuesta dinero, cuesta más dinero, lo que imposibilita que muchas veces los maestros se preparen, ¿no? para ello. Y yo simplemente hacer una última reflexión, ¿no? Es verdad que en los últimos años existe un interés creciente en las universidades, tanto públicas y privadas en España, por incluir dentro de sus títulos académicos ya el conocimiento sobre la discapacidad. Actualmente hay más de 2.000 referencias de discapacidad en asignaturas que se imparten en estudios de primero y de segundo ciclo, o sea que la verdad es que vemos que vamos avanzando. Se habla de TIC, se habla de sistemas de comunicación aumentativos,
Por favor,
alternativos.
5 minutes left.
Mitos. Vale. Contaros que para nosotros es fundamental que en la escuela empecemos a trabajar. En 11, por ejemplo, tenemos desarrolladas lo que son las competencias básicas que tiene que desarrollar un niño con discapacidad visual, y la escuela tiene unas competencias claves, ¿no? En este momento estamos trabajando para que estas competencias básicas se incluyan dentro de las competencias clave. No es difícil, pero para ello necesitamos que los docentes, que los profesores que atienden a nuestros niños, ¿no? tengan ese conocimiento. Y por ello, yo un poco la presentación que estoy haciendo la he titulado que para que la inclusión sea una realidad es necesario que sea una competencia clave en la formación superior del profesorado. Es decir, que en cualquier materia curricular, ¿no? que se imparte en las universidades, en esas profesiones que luego están relacionadas con la escuela, se incluya la discapacidad como un conocimiento más. Es mucho más fácil para cualquier persona adquirir esos conocimientos y nos olvidaremos de conceptos como adaptar, accesibilidad, ¿no? porque conseguiremos que en su trabajo lo integren y puedan trabajar con los niños con ceguera de una manera totalmente normalizada, aunque nosotros sigamos siendo profesionales a disposición de la escuela, a la intervención, a la experiencia y aportar la experiencia y la formación necesaria para que los niños consigan realmente ser iguales y no tengan tantos problemas en el camino. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Anna. We really appreciate your participation in the seminar and learning about what you're doing in Spain. I have to say that while you were talking, I remembered that some 30 years ago, Once translated my first book, Reach Out and Teach, and made it available in Spanish across the world. So thank you very much. Do we have any questions from our panelists? I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. Maybe they will come up as we go on. But let me go back to Gloria and ask whether you mentioned that you used to evaluate a program something called your program quality indicators. I wonder if that's available for others.
Yes, we're using that instrument, that tool, and actually we are teaching the model programs how to use them. And some of the governments that are working with us, they're asking for that tool. Actually, one of the governments from Brazil, the government of Macapá, wants to use it as a tool to evaluate other programs they have in the state. Also, a state in Mexico has also, one of the states in Mexico that we work, have asked us for the tool, because one of the things that we have found out is that the secretaries and the Ministry of Education, they don't have a tool to evaluate the programs where they are in their evolution. So it's available. I would say that we are revising. So once we have the tool available,
I don't know if we have it right now, like for the public, like open to the public. I would say that yes, we could share that instrument, but I would say that now we're going through a process of revision. So, but yes, it's open. Yeah, it's open.
Good. I look forward to looking at it. I'm very interested in seeing it.
Thank you. Yes.
We do have a question. It is in Spanish we have two questions in Spanish. Perhaps someone could translate for us in our chat.
I see one of, I can read in Spanish. So, ¿cómo llevar a cabo la formación docente en atención a la diversidad en países en desarrollo? Yeah, it seems that Regina, I know her, she's from Peru, and she's asking how to do teacher training and attend to the diversity in countries, in development countries, in developing countries. So that's one question. And that the other person is asking, Carlos is asking, what is better, specialized centers or special education centers or inclusive education? Those are the two questions.
I didn't hear the translation of the second question.
So the second question is, what is better, specialized schools or inclusive education?
Thank you. No need to apologize. You guys have been great. Laura, you can answer first.
Yay. I've forgotten the first question. Oh yes. I think the first question was about the diversity and how you do this with different cultures. And I'll just say that we've had numerous partnerships. We have one really strongly going on right now with Puerto Rico. And we always learn. Bob McCulley and I went to Puerto Rico the very first time to do something similar, to actually prepare people who had gotten their TVI license at an undergrad level through the University of Puerto Rico, but they are also responsible for teaching orientation and mobility travel skills, but had not had the instruction in that area. So we were trying to figure out a way to give them a master's degree so that they could go up that ladder and then still have that. Anyway, we went down there and went to dinner with the people, and we had it in our mind how we were going to do it, but that was a mistake. We needed to meet them, really listen to what they wanted and where their needs were. And we stayed up till 3 in the morning redoing everything before the next day. So I would say that we learn every time. We also have collaborations in Taiwan, very different cultures there and very different needs. And we just keep learning by doing that. As to the second question, I really feel like most appropriate placement, something that came out from Phil Hatlin, a gentleman who's no longer alive, that has to do, it's going to sound like I'm dodging the question, but I think it depends on the kid. I think it depends on the kid and where that child is in their needs as to where they need to be educated. And I think it varies. I think sometimes they need a dedicated place and socialization with other kids like them. And then I think sometimes they need the other and inclusive. Inclusion's great, but it's got to meet the needs of the child. So I'll be quiet now.
Anna, could you respond to Carlos's question about special schools versus inclusive education?
Sí, sin problema. Pues, a ver, en España, para nosotros es mejor la inclusión educativa. Aporta otros valores, además de que los niños no se sienten diferentes, además de que pueden ir a la escuela con sus hermanos, con sus amigos, a la escuela de su barrio. la ONCE empezó funcionando con centros específicos cuando en España la educación de ciegos era obligatoria en centros específicos, pero llevamos desde los años 80 impulsando la inclusión, la integración en las aulas. Os decía antes que el 99% de los niños están escolarizados en centros ordinarios y tenemos una pequeñita, vamos, puedo decir que son 30 alumnos, ¿no?, en un centro específico que tenemos concretamente aquí en Madrid, en uno de nuestros centros de recursos. Nuestros centros específicos educativos se convirtieron en centros de recursos, que luego es el que da base a todo lo que os he contado antes, ¿no?, donde se genera la experiencia, desde donde podemos planificar formación, intervenciones, pautas de trabajo. Este pequeñito centro escolar lo tenemos y lo denominamos que es un centro para apoyo a la inclusión educativa, en el que los niños vienen de forma transitoria durante 1 o 2 cursos para reforzar aspectos relacionados con la discapacidad visual. Imaginaros un niño que tiene 10 años y que se queda ciego de repente, ¿no? Mantenerle en el sistema ordinario, teniendo que aprender braille, teniendo que aprender tecnología, tiflotecnología, autonomía, es posiblemente hacérselo pasar muy mal y no evolucionar bien. Viene a este centro específico y además de seguir trabajando todo lo curricular relacionado con su etapa educativa, trabajamos intensamente todas estas necesidades y en 2 años normalmente vuelve a su centro educativo preparado para poder seguir escolarizado donde su familia ha decidido. Para nosotros es importante. Ahora estamos probando una nueva modalidad, que es combinar para estos niños una atención específica en un centro de recursos nuestros, pero escolarizado en un centro ordinario. O sea, combinar de forma que puedan estar horas lectivas, diríamos, recibiendo formación específica de materias que en algunos sitios ya se reconocen en España como curriculares, como el braille, como la tecnología y como la autonomía, ¿no?, y el resto de materias en su centro ordinario. Así que apuesta total por la inclusión.
Yeah, I can add a little bit about that. You hear me?
Hey,
So,
Gloria,
yes,
will you take Carlos's question and then we'll move on to another one?
what is Carlos'
The
question?
question about what's better, special schools or inclusive education?
Well, in an ideal world, I think everybody should be included. You know, I would say that the ideal is inclusion. Nobody should be separated because of their disability, because of their gender, because of anything. I think our goal is to go towards inclusion. That's for sure. The thing is how to go there, how we can go in that direction. So I think the goal is that, but of course you have to plan it in a way that is that can be work in the system that you have, the resources that you have, the people you're working with, the culture, that the system. So you have to work with what you have, but the direction is inclusion. Definitely.
Thank you,
And one thing I have to say, many times in specialized schools, even in schools that are, because that happens to us right now, some of the schools that we're working in specialized, even the children with multiple disabilities are not even included in these schools. They're separate in one classroom or 2 classrooms, so they're not even part of that community. So that's the thing, sometimes not even the specialized schools, there's inclusion. So that's, yeah, okay.
I don't want to add anything to that. I thoroughly endorse what everyone has said so far, but let's go on to a question from Eddie that says, is inclusive education possible in countries with low income?
Yes.
Is that's enough? We can go on.
Yeah, well, yes, but it's hard. I would say, but even in countries that are developed countries, it's not easy in inclusion because it's about attitudes. It's about changing the systems. It's hard to have, even in countries that have a lot of resources, like here in the United States, it's not easy to include children who are blind or visually impaired or have multiple disabilities in regular schools. But I've seen it in Latin America. I work in Latin America, and I've seen it in Costa Rica. I've seen it in Brazil, for example. The boy that I just mentioned to you is in an inclusive school. So I've seen inclusion, but it's not like generalized. I think it depends on many factors, but it can happen. It can happen.
Yeah, I
Okay,
agree.
I'm sorry?
I
Another,
was just going to say that I
Yo también.
agree. I saw it in some of those very, very remote islands, and it's very natural. It can be very natural because, as Gloria said, the attitudes are everybody gets up and eats and goes to this one building and has school. Everybody in the tribe, everybody in the group. So it can happen. It can. It's the attitudes that are more the key. I agree.
and I think that's exactly what ICEVI's startup teacher training curriculum was about. It's just changing the attitudes. You can go on for more advanced education later, but you have to have the right mindset to do it right first. We have a question from Socorro. I hope I said that right. Do you have statistics on teachers trained in visual disability? I don't know that we have statistics in the United States even. Okay, and maybe you could tell us exactly what kind of statistics you are looking for, Socorro?
Sí.
Anna, did you want to say something?
Nosotros no, vamos, no tenemos estadísticas. Bueno, igual están publicadas en la página del ministerio, pero vamos, no, tenerlas no.
Well, I remember, Laura, you talked about NPTP, that there were studies that led up to that were done by Corinne Kirchner back at the American Foundation for the Blind, that led up to the conclusions of that whatever report it was, whatever year it came out.
Right.
But I think at that time they were talking about a shortage of 13,000 teachers of students with visual impairment in the United States per year. And there's no way that we produce that many teachers every year.
No, we don't. You're exactly right. In fact, there's a group of us trying to replicate and not replicate, but it's sort of redo the MPTP now to try to figure out a way to get an accurate student count, child count, and teacher count, and personnel prep count. So we're working on that right now. There's been some good, Rachel Shells has done some really nice publications very recently that are helping with that, but yeah.
It makes me think that the more things change, the more they stay the same in many ways. We seem to go around in circles sometimes in our field.
So right.
Well, we are nearing the end of our webinar. I want to thank those who spoke to us, who gave us different perspectives on how teacher education is occurring around the world. I also want to point out to Anna, I meant to say this earlier, that I think you coined a new phrase. We've heard a lot during the World Blindness Summit about no child left behind. Anna, I have a new one, no child without a family. Thank you for that. So I also think we need to think about universally designed teachers. We talk about universal design for learning, but we also need universally designed teachers who can work with any child at any point in time. And that would be if all things were equal, that would be what we would need in our schools. So I thank you for participating. I thank you for, oops, I just had someone just told me we had extra time if we wanted it. I think I go to another question. Socorro came back and said, in Mexico, the schools that train teachers no longer exist. And I was asking about the situation in other countries.
I think she meant she's saying teacher blind, teacher for the visually impaired, not teacher training, teachers in general. I think that's what she's mentioned.
Okay, I think that's true. It's also true in the Caribbean, and our region has a project, not ICEVI, but it comes from the Caribbean Council of the Blind, to start a college of special educators in the Caribbean, because those teacher training programs have closed down as well. There was only one.
What happened in I can make a comment. Like, for example, in Costa Rica, what happened, because I graduated from Costa Rica from a program for the teachers for the visual impaired years ago. But then it became inclusion was a movement. And then so people wanted to graduate generalist teachers. So these teachers that you're talking about, that they can work with any population. But the problem is that with children with visual impairments, you need certain techniques, certain strategies that if you take this general course, it's very superficial. So one thing that in Costa Rica they're doing right now is that teachers have to go to this generalist program, but they can do a specialization in visual impairment. So it's more like a degree after they take the general training, teacher training program. And that's how I think they have solved that issue, because that was the issue. Teachers needed more training, for example, in visual impairment, so more training in deafness, and they were not getting it in this general training that came because of inclusion.
So I seem to have misread the question about running out of time, and actually we have run out of time. So I'm going to respond to the very last question, which was, how about if a teacher is blind? And I would tell you that it does not matter if the teacher is blind or not. Blindness affects how a person learns, not what they learn.
Nada.
So any blind person can be a teacher, and the more blind teachers we have, the better it will be for our students. So thank you all for participating, for contributing your thoughts, for participating in the World Blindness Summit. This has been an amazing experience. Thank you to our translators. Thank you to our support staff. Thank you, Jorge. Thank you, Once. And I'll say good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.